Thank you for tuning into our podcast, Canal Days, What Life is Like in the Industrial Connecticut River Valley of Massachusetts. I'm your host, Carrie, and joining us today is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He offers public and private tours as well as presentations of historical sites throughout communities in the state of Massachusetts. The communities he has chosen to focus on this year are Holyoke, Chicopee, South Hadley, and East Hampton, and also Granby and Amherst as well. His tours spotlight the local canals, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks, streets, and selected historical houses within each community. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the St. Anne Church located in Turners Falls, Massachusetts. So, where in Turners Falls is this church located?
It's actually very close to the power canal. That surprised me. It's about 100 yards away from it. And actually very close to the beginning of it, too. Maybe about a half mile away from the beginning of it. And so thus it surprised me its location was pointing right towards that canal. So today we're going to talk about what else is on the campus, what the neighborhood is like around it, and then what the history of the whole church campus would be. All right, and the St. Anne Church was for people from Quebec. It was not the first Catholic church in Montague or Turners Falls, but a lot of French Canadians started coming in during the 1890s and had a great need for the church here, and it built up from that location. Now, it's easy to find. It's next to a park. It's off of those Avenue, I believe it's A. And there's a lot of churches inside of Turners Falls. I think in one trip I was walking around, I think I counted 7 very close to each other. And this one's on the canal, towards the canal side. All the rest of them, I believe, are much further from the canal.
And can you reveal what else is on the church's campus?
It's a full campus, so the rectory is there, made about the same time. There's also a school there off to, as you view into the church, it's off to the left. The rectory's off to the right. There's a big park off to the right. I don't know where the convent was, but there had to be one. So someday I'll put it onto the webpage for this church, with many pictures I've taken already. So it's a complete campus, and if you walk around the whole block, you can see it makes a nice hole with the residential homes around the area too.
And really quick before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to sign up for any of our various tours or check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there you can find the entire podcast series and video series, as well as photos and text of historical sites throughout. And for private tours or other inquiries, you can email him directly at bobcat4214B@yahoo.com. And his tours make for fun, educational, outdoor activities for families and group parties. So getting back to our interview, describe the neighborhood around the church.
There's a nice little park, a rectangular shape off to the right-hand side as you view in towards the church. It faces next to the rectory itself. And the park also across the street and maybe 100 feet up has another park called the Turners Falls Memorial Park. And there you have memorials and honor rolls for all wars from World War I onwards to present day. So there's a couple of nice parks. There's also a Carnegie Free Library very close on. There's a lot of homes. I've told you about the canal nearby. And there's a lot of churches on the other side of the avenue, but they're kind of up the hill. So this is kind of the avenue with the churches, and that makes it a really cool place.
And disclose to us the history of the church's campus.
All right, the church came around in the year 1885, and it built up the rectory that same year. It probably held school somewhere, maybe in the basement, or maybe they waited. But by 1896, that school that is there was built. And that was a big addition to the whole campus. It's a large school. So it's a very interesting looking campus. The church itself is a Gothic revival architectural style. The rectory is more colonial look, and then the school is too. It's it's a very functional school. It looks very similar to a lot of the other Catholic schools around the Pioneer Valley, so it's quite similar. And the whole campus, I believe, was made by the same person, a person that made a lot of the French Canadians Catholic schools of around the 1880s and 1890s. I think his name was Doné Barnabot. And it's quite obvious, if you compare this to other churches, it's very similar. Now, compared to the other churches that came around, this came around actually pretty fairly early. There was an Irish Catholic church that's still up on the hill. That was first. This came second. And then the Polish ethnic group came last. And our church up on the hill is still there. And that's the third of the Catholic churches. And there's a lot of Protestant churches across the way too. So this one fits into the mainstream. It's not next to all those other churches, but it's off on its own. And it probably developed a French Canadian neighborhood or sub-neighborhood around itself.
And thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours and historical topics of expertise. And we want to thank our listeners for tuning in. And be sure to check out a large selection of other podcasts on his website, as well as on SoundCloud.com. And new videos and podcasts are posted daily.